Hello and welcome. This is Laren with the Fantasy Grounds Academy. Been looking at some posts over the last few months, so we got a lot of new people that are confused about how to connect to themselves in Fantasy Grounds. One might do this to help understand what it's supposed to look like on the player's end. There's all kinds of reasons why you might want to connect to yourself depending on what is going on. But the main thing to remember is that you're going to be launching two different instances of Fantasy Grounds depending on what your needs are. So what I'm going to do now is show you kind of basically setup that I have. I'm using Windows 11, and you have this little card thing that pops down if you have Windows 11, or you can just do this manually. So you can set these panels to either side of the screen. That way you can tell which is which, and you're not getting confused as to what instance that you're working with. So I'm going to close some of these windows out, just kind of make this a little less confusing, and close that out. So basically, I'm going to have two instances of Fantasy Grounds. So I have both going to be launched at the same time. So what I want to do is go ahead and launch this, and then I'm going to assign this a panel. So this will be on the right-hand side. And then the next instance, which I will launch a separate instance. So this is the first instance. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and create a campaign. So I'll call this test connection, just for the lack of a better title. The main thing here is how you want this to set up. So there are two types of ways to connect to the table or to yourself. You can go all the way out to the cloud and connect to yourself that way, or you can connect to yourself locally. But you have to choose one or the other. It's very difficult to have a localized version and then a online version without doing a bunch of fancy stuff. Another thing that can make this confusing is if you have a VPN or antivirus software or anything that protects or masks your internet protocols, your IP address, it's going to make this process a lot more complicated. So I'm just going to let you know up front, if you have an antivirus blocking stuff, or if you have different permissions, or you're at a hotel or whatever, it may be hard to do these sort of things. So this is assuming that you have a PC, that you're doing this at home, and you're not trying to mask your IP address. So essentially what I'm going to be doing is setting up a test connection so that I can connect to myself. So right now, I just have the first instance open. I haven't opened anything else up yet. And I'm going to put a password on it because this is set up as cloud and public. So that means anyone can connect to my game once I do this. So I'm just going to put no pass right here. And then I'm going to set it to just leave it as this. So when people see my name on the list when it comes to connection, my name will still show up, but it will be password protected. And then I'm just going to pick the rule set, so that way I have something to go on, something to start with. And this will happen or work for any rule set. So you have test connection, you put your password on there, and you select the type of connection. So this way is connecting through the cloud. Now you cannot mix the two. You either have to connect through the cloud or locally. I think there's some confusion about that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit start. And that's going to start my connection on the cloud server, which all that does is it hosts the actual protocols and the connection process, not the game itself. The game is actually still hosted on my computer. So this is going to start up. As it's starting up, I'm going to launch another instance. So I have Fantasy Grounds on my shortcuts bar down on the bottom left. And I'm going to right click and click on Fantasy Grounds again. And that's going to launch another instance. And what I'll do with this instance is I'll move it over here so you can see what's going on. And then this is going to be a case where I'm going to set the panel to the left side so that I have them side by side. So on the right-hand side is the host. On the left-hand side is the guest or the client, like your players. So as you can see on the right-hand side, I have a new instance set up. I'm just going to go through a couple things here and just kill that. Now, if I'm the player, I'm going to click Join Campaign. In this case, I'm just going to run a local game locally. And it's going to be done through the internet. So I'm just connecting to myself through the cloud, through the internet, and then back into my own computer. So I'm going to go ahead and look for Laren to join his game, which is myself. And as you can see, because it's a public game, because I set it up that way, it's going to show here in the connections here. Again, I search for Laren. That's my GM name. And I go ahead and hit start. And as I connect, it's going to prompt me for a password because I password protected it. And over here on the right, as soon as I connect, it will actually show me connecting to myself. So authorization failed. The host has protected the session with the password. Please retry. So I set it up as no pass. And you do have to spell it correctly and don't put extra spaces or anything like that in there. And I click retry. And very shortly now, on the right-hand side, it should show that I am trying to connect to myself. So it says acquiring file list, which is normal. And as you can see here, it says Laren connected. So that is one way to connect to yourself. So this would be helpful if you were wanting to stream and you want to use a player session to show the stream, or you might want to test something out or something like that. So this could be done if you have other players connecting to you remotely. So that's where this would come in handy, is you connect to yourself via the cloud on the Fantasy Grounds website. They have a FAQ, which will get into Troubleshooting Network. So if you go to their Atlassian file and you're having problems connecting, you can go through there and do some troubleshooting. Generally, though, if you cannot connect to the host, especially if it's your own host, more than likely you have an antivirus software or a firewall or some kind of VPN or something blocking it. So that's generally the first place you want to check if you can't connect to yourself. And as you can see, now I am connected as a player. This is the left-hand side as a player, the right-hand side is the host. Now I'm going to close the session on the right-hand side, or I'm going to disconnect and go back to the launcher. So I'm going to hit return to launcher. And as you can see, the person that was connected, which is myself, was booted. Now I have the exact same account. I'm connected to the lobby, and both of these are ultimate, but they are two separate instances. So the next type of connection will be a local one. So if I don't have anyone connected to me from the internet, and I'm just playing at my house, and maybe I have a couple computers at my house to connect to, I'm going to go ahead and click on this load campaign. There's a test connection, but this time I'm going to type LAN. So that's your local area network. The port is 1802. And again, I still have it password protected. I don't have to, but I'm going to leave it that way. I'm going to hit start. So when I connect via this instance on my own computer with another instance of Fantasy Grounds, I'm going to go to join campaign. But down here where it says join by IP and port, I'm going to type the word localhost. It's one word, it's a phrase, it's port 1802. Once this side over here is loaded, I'm going to actually start and connect to myself. Now, there are some confusing things that happen when you're trying to do this. I don't know what happens, but some people get an error message that they're trying to connect to themselves with the same license and that sort of thing. I think it has to do with permissions, and also if you're truly launching a second instance, or if you're actually launching the same instance twice. So there could be I'm not sure what causes it. But nonetheless, now that this side is up, I'm going to go ahead and hit start. Immediately it says it wants the password. No problem. That's no pass. And I'm going to hit retry. And once it's done acquiring the file list, there I am connected again to my own instance. So this is locally, not going out on the internet. The other way I did earlier was actually going onto the internet. So this is good for like testing your campaigns when you're doing prep work, those sort of things. So if you're having any trouble with this, or if you need to see this 50,000 times, you can rewind it, whatever you need to do. Leave some comments in the description later on if you need to. I can't guarantee I can help you troubleshoot your networking issues, but quite often when you cannot do this, it has to do with permissions, it has to do with security, it has to do with a VPN or a firewall or something on your router, or something has been blocking your ability to do so. The other thing could be your antivirus. So it just depends on your computer and what you have set up. As far as Macintosh goes and the Linux, I don't know how that works. I'm sorry, I'm not covering that, but it should be kind of similar, but I don't know exactly all the nuances of it. So as you can see over here, I'm also connected again locally. So you either have to be local or you have to use the cloud. You cannot mix both. So in other words, I cannot host a local game and then invite players to connect to it because I've already set my settings in the host as a local game. If I want people from the outside to connect, then I have to set it up as a cloud game. And I could still connect to myself through a cloud game, but I have to go outside and back in through the cloud. So hopefully that helps clarify some things. You have a good